Good evening, everyone. I'm Arun Prakash Asokan again for you, and I'm here to help you with an interesting three-part webinar series. And we are here to talk about something that is the buzzword, generative AI. Right. So this is one of the most important topics, most happening topics, not a topic to be ignored, unlike our past years where lots were happening in the space of AI, and people were cherry picking topics or ideas to leverage. But now it is something which we cannot stay away from. So welcome you all to this webinar series where I'm going to help you with a lot of insights from real world experiences in building AI solutions for over 14 years. And I started even before the industry started in India. So that's where I was able to relate to how we were doing things in an earlier setup and how things happen now in a pretty fast paced mode, right? It's AI on steroids. That's generative AI. So the idea here is to bring in a lot of industry perspective, but at the same time, we need to keep a good balance between little history, demystification of variety of topics which we have been hearing all through the years, and how the variety of topics relate to what is there are today, right? The generative AI. So that's the first part of the webinar where we will try to demystify. We will delve into some foundational aspects of generative AI, and I will help you with little bit more details that are the under the hood happenings on how these generative AI and what are the building blocks and little secret innovations which are really making that to be the biggest success factor of today. And we will try to relate that to the latest and greatest happenings, and that's where we would park our first 1 hour discussion on demystifying generative AI. So this is more, the next 1 hour is more around getting excited, getting introduced to the world. You might have heard things in bits and pieces. Let's connect the dots and bring everybody on the same page. The idea here is to keep it domain agnostic, keep it experience agnostic, keep it people agnostic, right? So we are trying to take a neutral look at it. And webinar 2 and 3 are now going to deep dive, right? So we are going to talk about the secret sauce to really win in the era of generative AI. And trust me when I say this, prompt engineering is going to be the future, and it is something where we can take a stop, think about it for an hour, and we will discover how to talk to these generative AI models. Yeah. And nowadays, every single person is a developer, everybody is a programmer. And I mean it. And webinar 2 will answer questions around how prompt engineering is the secret sauce. And webinar 3 is, again, we are going to do a very practical demonstration of variety of use cases, industry applications, ChatGPT included, but we will still look at how video, how audio, and the multimodal capabilities of generative AI are going to help us, right? So the idea here is to space it across 3 different weeks, starting today, the 6th, 13th, and the 20th of this month, and just invest 3 hours of your valuable time, and let's learn something new. So this is the idea of webinar 1. Let's demystify generative AI. And more about me and what I do in the industry towards the end of the session. And I'm happy to connect with you guys offline as well for any questions. Let's first break the ice. Yeah, as they always say, it's good to know what people think. There is a quick poll on your screen, and I call it the icebreaker poll. And this is pretty much related to what we are going to talk about. But let's see what we know from the cinematic universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Jarvis is an artificial intelligence assistant, and which superhero from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right, is associated with this? And again, we are talking about the second question where we are talking about Endiran, Indian movie. Director Shankar brought us this movie. And what is the name of the humanoid robot invented by Dr. Vasigaran? I don't think we need to think a lot to answer these two interesting questions, but let's do a little warm up. And most of us got introduced to the world of AI through these movies or through these characters. So let me close the poll. 5, 4, 3, 2, and boom. Let's see what people really know about AI from the world of cinema. So the first one, needless to say, Jarvis is this smart, intelligent AI system which assists our one and only Iron Man from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And great to know, 78% of us are aware of it. Definitely not Spider-Man, Doctor Strangle, or Captain America, right? And wow, 78%. Look at that similarity. It's 78 again, right? Our audience, and it's the exact count. So Chitty, none other than our Chitty, who is the humanoid robot Dr. Vashigaran makes, and we are going to touch upon Chitty in the next couple of slides as well. Let's do one more interesting poll, and I would like to know you guys better. This is something which you should not even think for a second before you answer. What's your overall experience in the industry? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we should close. Still, we are just at 70%. Grace seconds. 3, 2, 1, and boom. Okay, so we have pretty diverse distribution, and of which majority 60% comes from people who are really new in the industry. 60%. Great to know the excitement, and definitely the mid management group. And we also have friends with lots of experience from the industry. We have seniors 16, 20, and 20 plus. That's a good 15% and above. We are so we are going to have a very broad look at it, and this is going to be really interesting. Let's maintain the decorum by using the Q&A window for any questions. And this is interesting. Let's see what kind of takeaways we have, and let's continue further and think about this question. How many of you are really working in the field of AI? So when I say this, I'm just trying to understand. AI here is a very loosely spoken term, so it includes people who are doing anything in the field of data analysis, data scientists, robotics, content automation, generative AI included, right? Anybody who's a machine learning engineer, anyone who's a data engineer, you guys definitely qualify to be an AI. Or of course, AI leaders overseeing all of it definitely also to qualify for this NS. And the next important question is, do you know what is generative AI? 5, 4, honest answers. 3, 2, 1. And there you go. Some of you are not answering. Please feel free to interact. This is our way. I wish we all are face to face. But again, look at that. 80% of us are not working in the field of AI. We are not working in the field of AI. But how does these numbers tie up? Do you know generative AI? It's almost 50-50, right? 50% of the folks know it, and of which 20% really are working. Okay, we are talking about people who are really here to get a lot of awareness, and less people who are already working in the industry. But look at this, 80% are not working, but 50% of you guys really know what generative AI is. So this already talks about why we need to meet on a busy Thursday evening talking about it. Great. I'm really glad that you helped us with these ice-breaking questions. Let's now think about the 20% of you who know it, and the 80% of you who are really excited about. Let's talk about AI in general, and we are going to look at variety of concepts. And here the idea is to take away the intuition behind it, and we'll try to relate to something around us. And that's the idea of this webinar. Let's deep dive into the term AI itself, the three different big terms: artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and artificial super intelligence. Now, these three terms are, we must have heard of AI, but not all of these three terms. So it's important for us to first know that these three terms are there. Where do we stand in the overall trajectory and how mature are we as a community in this artificial narrow, general, and super intelligence, and where exactly do we stand, right? That's what we should first understand before we even talk about all of this hi-fi stuff. Artificial narrow intelligence, as the term suggests, right? These are machines which are specialized in doing one single task at a time, one problem, a virtual assistant, a model which predicts for the weather, right? You ask Siri, do I need an umbrella today? It understands that this is a person who's asking a question. I need to help him with an answer. And the question is about weather because it's an umbrella. So it's fine-tuned and it's doing one specific task. And that is what we call as the first step. That is the era of machine learning. And this is artificial narrow intelligence. And we have been building lots of systems on this space, right? Last 15 years and above, if you see, we used to use the term data mining, knowledge mining, which slowly led to the topic of machine learning. And last 15 to 20 years, we were pretty much building a lot of artificial narrow intelligence systems. Then the advancement in that system, which led to a specific area called artificial general intelligence, where we are talking about those machines, which we are referring to as systems or computers, to keep it simple, which are as smart as that of a human in doing any generic task that a human would do. This is sounding very, very interesting, but this is a very difficult problem. So we humans are learning a lot of things, and the way we reason out things. And if you take two humans given a single question, the way these two humans think completely differ based on plenty of factors, right? It's a function of a lot of things, right? Experience, education, what do they do, what is their background, and of course the genes, right? But how do we make these machines reach that state of artificial general intelligence? And this is the era which has just begun now, and we see sparks of artificial general intelligence with the advent of generative AI. More on this in the upcoming slides, but you understand we are somewhere in the initial stages of AGI. But AGI is, I used to give webinars 6 years ago where I used to say that AGI is far-fetched. It's going to take lots of years for us to reach there, but now we are already there, right? So this 6 months has been the craziest of all 6 months in my entire career, where AGI is kicking in. Now, what about ASI? We are talking about machines which are becoming conscious, right? A machine which is better than the best human brain, right? In every damn field. Yes. So that is machine consciousness. And this is really scary. And this is artificial superintelligence. And I think this is where people are trying to put a lot of guardrails. And you see the CEOs, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman traveling all across the world now, the last 1-2 months, doing a world tour, talking to governments to bring in these guardrails, to bring in regulations around how AI is helping, and it is not overpowering us. And this is stage 3, but still a real stage, and it is in the making, right? Let us be aware of it. Let's acknowledge that there are 3 different interesting aspects. Now, artificial narrow intelligence is definitely all around us, right? Anyone holding a smartphone, anybody holding a smartphone, whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, you are big time users of AI. Starting with a very simple way where we used to carry these huge cameras, DSLRs for amazing photographs, are now becoming a small mobile pocket smartphone, right? The portrait mode is nothing but a smart AI-based semantic segmentation where the background is kind of identified and you are identified as a person and the background is blurred. So it is a software effect which gives the same hardware effect that the DSLR has, right? So this is just one. Every single thing, right? The day starts and your day ends with AI intervention, right? How many days have you stayed away without Googling for it, right? So it starts with that. Google Maps, think of all these are all artificial narrow intelligence systems. But wait, what will happen when an AI, which is trillion times smarter than us, do, right? Think of this situation where this AI is really smarter than the smartest human being. Thanks to these gentlemen, the directors, visionaries, James Cameron and Shankar, and the movies they have made, which has really created that nice hype, and also has put in a lot of questions around, can AI even do this? The first time when I watched Terminator and when that decision of conquering the world happens, think of that moment, the goosebump moment, and think of that particular movie, Endiran, where post the interval block, Chitty becomes really conscious, right? And see how the whole plot takes a radical shift. And that's where it gets interesting, right? And before that, it was just a robot telling speed 1 terahertz and beating people up and reciting all that it knows. But the moment it became conscious, the whole game gets interesting, right? So that is artificial superintelligence, and it is something which we all have experienced in some form or shape in these movies, right? But there is it's time for a real reality check. Artificial superintelligence is far-fetched. Now I would like to restate what I used to say 5 years, 7 years ago. ASI is definitely far-fetched, and we are in the initial stages of artificial general intelligence. Now, the smartest brains on this planet Earth, right? Starting be it Stephen Hawking to Musk to Bill Gates, all these tech-savvy people, right, have all spoken good and something terrific about AI. Right, it's likely to be the best or the worst thing happen to humanity. Say Stephen Hawking and Musk, we all know he used to tweet a lot, and now he's indeed owning Twitter, and he has been really a big advocate of AI, right? And he guesses AI is the biggest existential threat for humanity, and that's where he even wrote this letter or to pause all the AI enhancements like GPT-4 and all these models, the biggest powerful models, to be paused, and we take a step back and think how to even achieve this or approach this problem carefully, right? And I'm going to talk about more such challenges, right? Let's get excited first, and let's also take away some real problems that these generative AI, the field has. And of course, Bill Gates, needless to say, I strongly encourage you guys to follow Bill Gates's blog, where he really touches upon these 3 big instances in his life where he was amazed by technology. The first moment when he indeed learned about computers, and again the second moment was when the graphical user interface, right, when this intern guy comes to him and talks about the GUI, which indeed becomes the next 10 years roadmap for Microsoft, right? The graphical user interface, and then that's how Windows really grew and the market, and now they are indispensable. Now think of the third moment where he says generative AI is what that really is scarily good, right? And there are multiple talks available on YouTube for you guys to now follow these gentlemen. Let's really demystify now, right? So this is one slide which a lot of us must have seen, but let's really ask ourselves, do we understand this? AI, machine learning, deep learning, statistics, generative AI, so many terms, right? And also include data mining to this. People from statisticians, applied mathematicians from decade old or couple of decades old, they might have used these terms. Now, all this loosely come under the term artificial intelligence. We put a machine, we make the machine think, that is AI, right? And this research really started long ago, but significant research elements came up in 1950s, right, where we were talking about those Turing machines of the world invented, and we were building even chatbots, right? Even the first chatbot was built much earlier in those days, where machine was just giving rule-based answers. Now it was those days where the era began. Now, machine learning is something which really took its real peak from the 90s, and and all of a sudden, there was a big break of some 10, 15 years where not much was happening in the field of AI. Then slowly picked up the world of robotics, world of machine learning, where it was again considered as a subset. Think of machine learning as a small subset of artificial intelligence, where we are talking about those artificial narrow intelligence systems, right, which are good at making some decisions based on our data. Now, people started thinking how we can use data, and slowly the machine learning, a lot of algorithms were coming up, a lot of research community, newer algorithms related to predicting something. Simple thing, predicting the weather is a big problem. Predicting the stock price, classifying whether a customer is going to convert or not. You go ahead and swipe your credit card at a kiosk. It takes a split second before you get the word approved. Do you think what's happening behind the screen? There is a machine learning algorithm. There are machine learning algorithms, a battalion of them, running to say whether your transaction is fraudulent or not. What if the card was swiped at the United States 10 minutes ago, and you swipe here at somewhere in the local Kirana shop, right, at in the 10th minute from that transaction. This is a way to mitigate risk, and a lot of applications are there in machine learning. Now, lot of algorithms were coming together, and we were solving problems related to language, which is what we speak, what we tweet, what we write, what we have been seeing in books. That is language. Numbers, structured data, tables, all these problems were solved with machine learning algorithms. Now, there is one smart algorithm called a neural network. That particular machine learning algorithm started dominating the space, right? And this is, I'm talking about that 2000s and 2005 and those days, right? Where 2010, where this deep learning was catching up. And this is nothing but a neural network, which is a single machine learning algorithm, right? Which has very confusing look and feel, right? It is less intuitive, but it is better at solving problems which we were solving the traditional way. If you imagine a task of identifying a cat or a dog given a picture, that exterior world algorithms were not doing a great job, and deep learning was really dominating. If you take a set of English text and identifying what is the opinion of a person, this neural network algorithm was able to say whether the sentiment is positive or negative. And again, if you give a picture and if you want to identify what is the person, who's the person, how many persons are there, and it can even be a terrorist detection activity on a live CCTV camera at the airport at Delhi. You can imagine it can even be applied for serious situations, right? And that is deep learning. And 2015, I grew up in this era, right? 2009, 10, 11. I literally saw how these algorithms, one by one after the other, started taking the limelight. And deep learning is that biggest era. And community support. A lot of these tech companies started researching. Google, Facebook, and Netflix, a lot of these companies, Twitter included, they started creating their own research algorithms, and they released it one by one, and they were really building a community around it. And this is how it became much more interesting to solve the traditional problems. You know what? History repeats itself, right? What deep learning did to machine learning is what generative AI is doing to deep learning, machine learning, and everything, right? And I'm talking about history from 1950s. 2021 is that peak era of generative AI, where people were busy with pandemic in 2020, and we came back to normalcy in 2021. We started going out in 2022, and boom, all of a sudden, when the year ends, it becomes crazy, right? Everybody gets busy in talking about one idea, that is ChatGPT, right? And that era literally began little earlier, right? I'm going to touch upon little history as well on that. And it's important for us to relate to this term, generative AI. And it is a very intuitive term. See here, it is a set of algorithms, again, like machine learning algorithms. And when you took one machine learning algorithm like a neural network, and that algorithm in different forms and shapes solved a variety of problems, that is deep learning. And if you take that same deep learning algorithm in a very different avatar, right, which is really huge, and it can see lots of data, and it can solve a variety of problems, and this time it is not just here to solve a prediction or a classification problem or a translation problem. It can kind of solve any possible problem because of the capabilities it has, right? So that is generative artificial intelligence algorithms. Best example, ChatGPT, where these algorithms can create new content. This the world has never seen. We were doing specific tasks. You build a machine learning model, you feed it to some data, it learns patterns, and it was predicting or classifying something. But we are talking about algorithms which can create content. Can it really be creative? Or is it just a parrot which is repeating things? Yeah. Let's get all those questions answered in the upcoming slides. And generative AI it's also important for us to understand what is the powerhouse of all this broad and term generative AI, right? When we talk about specific tasks related to text, it's language, right? If you ask me what is the biggest invention of mankind, it is language, right? Because that it is something which we are still doing from the inception of languages, and language is the most powerful tool for communication for anything under the sun, right? And now we are talking about models which can really understand language, and these are not small models, these are large models. How large? Really large, right? Large language models, LLM, this is one term which you would come across a lot, and this is nothing but a neural network, which is a single machine learning algorithm, right? If you remember the history, AI to ML to deep learning to generative AI, in that large language models is again a one micro dot. This is trained on huge volumes of data, and the data is all about all data on the internet, all data on the books, all data that humans have ever generated. Can you imagine? It has seen beyond what the smartest language person has even seen. And that's where the power comes. And hence it's called large language models, right? It can understand what a human says, the human asks, and it can answer like a human. And that is when fine-tuned for a variety of tasks, which we were traditionally solving, that is where it gets customized and applied to a variety of business problems. Now, this is large language models in very, very layman terms, right? Let's take a step back and also do a little comparison to put this into context. The traditional style of solving problems, which I said, right, where we collect business data, relate to your domain, any business data, if you're from BFSI to telecom to manufacturing to supply chain, you imagine any data. And the data already has had evidences of something, right? So let's say you're building a model to forecast the weather or forecast the stock price. Now, this is the traditional style where we learn the patterns in the data and we used to predict something. Yes. Now, gone are those days where we build models which are specific at one. Now, generative AI models are nothing but these are models which are good at learning structured, unstructured, and variety of data. It's not just data which is constrained to tables or images or videos. It can be multimodal. Now, this is a new term, multimodal. Next time when you hear it from someone, what they mean is they are talking about variety of data, images to video to audio to text, right? Now, all these are again unstructured. The power of this model is we give an input and it gives an output, and that is a new content that is generated, right? And this is generative AI in very, very layman terms, right? So let's also do a very interesting idea, right? So how does one talk to these generative AI models? The idea is talking to generative AI models with an input, simple input, and we use the technical word, which is very intuitive, that's called prompts. Prompt is this word which clearly defines how our future is going to look like. I'm not exaggerating. I really mean it. There could be a completely non-technical person in this room. There could be a super duper technical person in this room, right? Who's even writing his or her own algorithms. Now, we don't need to build our own specific models with our limited data. We have these giant models which are already pre-trained and available for us to customize and use it for our needs. But how do you even talk to these models? Prompts. Now, what is a prompt? This is nothing but an input which we supply to these generative AI models, right? So it's important for us to put this into perspective where you want to get an output of your interest, of your choice. But how do you even talk? You need to give an input. That's all you need to do. And that input is nothing but a set of instructions. And we feed it to this generative AI model. An example of a large language model is ChatGPT, which we all must have tried, yes, to get the desired output. Now, this is how we talk. Let's do a quick check and a fun fact. What do you think is the hottest programming language now? Answers on the chat, please. What do you think is the hottest programming language now? Python, C, Go, I don't know, Java, Python, wow, there comes this answer. Sanskrit, come on, who's that? SQL, JavaScript. I think one of our participants kind of guessed it right? And we need to give it to him or her. It's English, guys. It's English. English is the hottest programming language. You believe it or not, this is what I'm really meant in the previous slides, right? Talking to these generative AI models, language models, ChatGPT, just in your own language, and English is the language which is tuned on, right? And you will more about this in our webinar 2, where we are going to deep dive into prompt engineering, right? How we use simple English to generate content from video to audio to text to solve problems, right? Which took some 3 months as a data scientist or a 6 months as a data scientist to solve. Now every business user can himself or herself use these large language models to solve those problems which they were really dependent on people, right? And being a data scientist, I shouldn't be explaining this much further. Let's do a fun exercise now, right? Let's ask generative AI to explain generative AI. Now that we know a lot of these basics around generative AI, right? Let's see this in real action. And I'm going to quickly bring up a link, right, from one of my friends. And this is a great attempt at explaining generative AI. I hope you can still see my screen. Do you see my screen? Great. Excellent. So let's take a second and let's do this exercise of making generative AI explain what is generative AI, right? And every single pixel that you see in the screen is created with generative AI models, right? The first thing I said, there is a prompt, right? And you see this nice looking robo face here, and this is created with the help of Midjourney, DALI, these kind of models, and especially Midjourney is the generative AI technology that is used to generate a picture. And look at this English that is written here. The image was created with Midjourney, a robo head, portrait, no background, artificial intelligence, minimalistic, white aesthetic, future, digital, realistic, 4K. And look at these, all these are keywords. Now, the way you write this is what is going to get you the best output. If you write a partially correct one, it might give you a robo face, may not be as jazzy as this looks like, right? Now, this particular generative AI has created this image. Now let's use another generative AI technology to ask what is generative AI. And it says ChatGPT, DALI, Midjourney, DeepMind, and these are all the popular generative AI models. ChatGPT is for text, DALI is for images, Midjourney is for images, and DeepMind is for multimodal stuff, right? And these are technologies which are really here to create content based on its exposure to large set of images to text, right? And that's what it explains. Now, what are the 3 important needs? You need a lot of data, which is models have seen, and you need to talk to these models with the help of an input prompt. And that's what I told you in the previous slide, a set of instructions. And it processes and it generates the content that you need. It could be an image, an audio, or a video, or even a poetry. Yes. And some of the examples which we have already seen, right? A quick look at it. It can generate a poem like this, and you can ask for any real-time communication, journalism, even creative writing, and people are even writing articles with these models, right? And Midjourney kind of models with a simple prompt like a rabbit wearing a sun hat can create this cute-looking rabbit. And you know what? The models have already seen a rabbit. The model has already seen lots of hats, and the model has seen a person wearing a hat. Now, what it does is it understands this prompt, a rabbit wearing a sun hat, and creates content wherein it pulls out a rabbit, it pulls out a sun hat from that person which it was wearing, and it tries to mix and match the two, and it creates a new picture for you. This is how generative AI on images work in very simple terms. And if you extrapolate this to anything, right, any image, right, any specific keyword, that's how these models get better and better with better prompts. Now, coding, I did not say. Last 6 months, there has been very interesting task. Even I tell my team, right, not to write codes, not to do a lot of those codes. Ask ChatGPT, right, because you get the best script, then you make edits to it, right? And it can write script in any language. Even we are doing quick web applications or models which we have never learned. Technology like Ruby or a Perl or Julia, these are languages which most of us, or even a front-end technology which a business person never knows. We can create a website in few lines of code by asking for this, right? And this is, I need not explain this further, right? So let's come back. And this is, I'm going to share this link, right? This is how generative AI explained itself. And all those images, every text there was generated with the help of these models. Now let's put all this together, and every single person here, irrespective of experience levels, can relate to your domain. We have business problems. Now, the business problems could be something related to looking at all the sensitive enterprise data that I have. It could be a legal team. It could be the HR team. It could be a bank which has so much of confidential information. And you might have to make some decisions like which customer should be given a loan, or should I write a job description for the next particular candidate, or should I even think of creating a code which will automatically solve the problems as and when they come. Let's say the production environment, there is an error, and generative AI creates a code and tries to solve the problem itself. We are talking about automation here, right? So we can kind of pivot this generative AI idea and fit this into every single damn use case out there. And I tell you, with all my practical experience, this is for real. We took a problem which we solved 3 years ago, and that took 6 months, and we tried to put together in 3 hours, right? And we go back to the client saying that, hey, this is what it was, and remember our 6 months journey, and this is what we did in the 3 days, and look at the betterment in the performance. And it was really an amazing moment, and we got the program expanding, right? So be it visual, audio, text, or code, and we can kind of, I'm not going to get into each of these areas. I think you should be able to relate to. We are talking about every single problem which we can find a use case with a generative AI intervention. Now we are coming to the crux of the story, guys. All this time, whatever I've been telling, you must have heard from people, right? And this is my version of it. But what is the secret behind all these models? Why is generative AI so successful? Why is ChatGPT liked by so much, right? What is the secret sauce? It's going to be little technical, but I promise I'll try to give you the intuition, right? And it's, if you understand this, the next 2-3 slides, I'm pretty sure you will have a very interesting takeaway for today. The transformers, the T in ChatGPT is nothing but generative pre-trained transformers. Now the word T stands for transformers. We are not talking about these transformers. We are talking about the transformer technology, which really came into existence, right, from 2017, right? And I'm going to give a little story, right? And this is going to help us to connect all the dots. Now, if you think of a decade ago, 2012 days, right? 10, 11 years ago, we used to solve vision problems, computer vision problems. When I say computer vision, you give an image, the computer should be able to read an image, understand an image, and do a classification of whether the animal is a cat or a dog, or the person is person X or a person Y. Give a handwriting, a pin code, a scribbled handwriting. It used to predict that each individual characters and digits or alphanumerics. That was 2012 days, and we had a model called CNN, convolutional neural networks. And then we used to also have one more model called recurrent neural networks, right? RNN. And I'm not going to get into the details, don't worry, but this story is going to really help. So here through this, RNN used to really rule those days, right? When I used to learn these models and recollect, these are nothing but neural network models, right? These are nothing but deep learning models, a specific architecture of your machine learning models, right? One specific class. And these were really ruling the space back then, right? I used to hear a lot about CNN and RNN, right? And I never had a mentor, but whenever we go to the internet and see, these were the models which used to have a lot of papers and talks. But these earlier models really had lots of challenges. The problem was, if you take a simple task of translating one page of text in English to another page of text in French, these models used to work in a sequence. If you say that I love cats and cats are this, my cat name is, let's say, Tom, and Tom is really hairy, you write all of this, right? Now, it used to work in a sequence. Every single word at a time it used to take and understand and kind of crunch and understand the relationship among words and then do a translation. You know what? By the time you reach the end of the page, it used to forget what was the beginning of the page. You forget the protagonist altogether. And that was the problem with these initial models like RNN, right? They are sequence to sequence models. And the problem is you can't also make these words go in parallel, right? If you have a huge novel, imagine the characters in Harry Potter, right? If you put an RNN in it, it goes crazy. Then came these LSTM models, right? And these are long short-term memory models. And the idea here is, hey, you know what, Aranan, you had this problem of memory. Now I'm LSTM. I can remember things, right? And I can come and do dance and solve what you couldn't solve. That's what LSTM said. This is another model which came in those days, right? Early 2014, 15 days. Now, think about it. This model took so long, right? It could remember, but it took so long. And these were really not solving the problem, right? And that's when in 2017, Google really came up with this disruption in the field of AI, right? And this is a real disruption. And they came up with this model called transformers. There is a real reasoning behind the name. It really transformed the field. It has transformed everything, right? And this is how the architecture looks. Very interesting, right? Everything we are able to make out by looking at this interesting architecture, but we are not going to getting into it. We'll do it in a separate session. But it had very interesting 3 innovations. And now trust me when I say this transformer is what is behind models like your GPTs, ChatGPT, GPT-4, models like Flantify from Google. Any single model under the sun on generative AI is transformer based. Now, those problems which RNN was funnily solving, right, where you try to translate a page in one language to another language, which you used to forget, and long short-term memory models, which used to take so long, Transformers was able to do it, all of these problems, right? It was able to find answers to. It was faster. You could parallelize, and you could really remember and understand a lot of tech context from this natural language. And natural language is a very big problem to solve. It's like we humans can understand any sort of language, right? But how do you make even a machine to do that? Now, transformers really became evergreen after that. And this is the mark, right? 2017. And after that came models like BERT, which completely changed the way Google search works. BERT was again introduced by Google. And then came 2018 onwards is the beginning of this initial stages of this generative AI, right? Where OpenAI was formed already in 2015. And we had these models like GPT, Robota, GPT-1, 2, 3, fast forward 2020 and 2022, we have ChatGPT, right? End of November. And now we have GPT-4, the beast. More on this in the next slide. But look at this slide, this picture. We initially started with a lot of dominance in text. 81% was more on text. But look at the growth in 2020, 2021, 2022, right? And these are all the papers, right? And this is for real. All the papers related to transformers, we see just 41% related to text now, but images, video, audio, all of these, this is what I called as multimodality, right? Different styles of data. Now, transformers are not helpful only in text. It is now helping in solving other problems also. Now, what is a transformer? Transformer is nothing but a neural network model that learns context, right? Now, be techie or non-techie, it's important for us to now appreciate what is transformers, because this is the secret sauce which helps in understanding the context, and it helps in understanding the real meaning and the relationship, right? When you write a complex sentence, right? And if you look at somebody who uses bombastic language and the kind of words and the kind of references they do, the sarcasm they intend, right? Even in a sequential data or even in a crumble data, this transformer is the model, which is the powerhouse, which is powering all these GPT and all these generative AI models. Now, it is having 3 very big innovations. And this is the most important takeaway of today, right? And the data scientists or somebody who has already got exposed, it would be a nice refresher, but we are going to spend like 5 minutes on this. And let's understand what are those 3 big innovations. The secret sauce is transformers. But how is transformer really doing a radical shift in the way we solve every single problem? 1, positional encoding, right? And now the idea here is the algorithm or the models, right? They understand what is the importance of word order. Now, word order is very important, isn't it? If you take the example of Ram went to look for Sita. Look out for Sita. And when you change the order of Ram and Sita here, right? Sita went to look out for Ram. What is this? The complete meaning changes, right? So the order of the words are very important. And these transformer architecture, the neural network architecture, took this order within the model itself. And this is where the first context kicks in. The positional encoding, the position of the words and the importance of the word really is understood by the models with this first big innovation. Second big innovation, attention. And you know what? When 2017, when Google announced this technology of transformers, do you know what was the name of the technical paper? It was called Attention is All You Need. Attention is all you need, because this is the most important innovation of all among the three innovations, and hence it even took the title, right? It made it to the title. And attention is here around how we pay attention to the real context. You might blabber for 10 minutes, but there might be just an essence is there only in few portions of the text of all that the person said, right? The context. And how it works here is it tries to kind of understand. You give an input to the model, you give an output to the model. Let's say you give an English sentence and you give the translation of that in French to these models. Now, the context is around what is that real important word, right? And it tries to create a mathematical relationship, right, among the words. And it's kind of an algebraic map, and it helps these models to understand the relevant parts of the input sequence and relate that to the output sequence. This is the second biggest innovation, which is attention. Let's take an example. You see this sentence in French, right? Jesus Hurex from French to English, which literally means I am happy. Now, if you look at this, the attention mechanism tells the model that this word Hurex, right, is the most important word to translate from this language to this language. Because happy, if you don't pay attention to happy, you lose the essence of this, right? And this is the most important word for the target language English. This is attention, very simple terms. Now, I know you would have questions. We'll come to that in next 5 minutes, right? But pay attention to the third biggest innovation, self-attention. Now, self-attention is a specific type of attention, right? I told you attention is the most important of all three innovations, but self-attention is paying attention to oneself, right? Referring to oneself, right? This is very important, because this is what really tells the meaning in a sentence, right? If you write a whole lot of poetry, or if you write a novel, if you write a lot of English, now the self-attention is the mechanism which tells the relationship of the, not the input sequence to the output sequence, like not the English input to the French output, right? If you're doing a translation task, but here it is about the relationship of the input sequence with itself, right? To understand the real meaning. Take this example. She poured water from the pitcher to the cup until it was full. Now, we humans know that this it refers to the cup, right? Look at the next sentence. She poured water from the pitcher to the cup until it was empty. Now, this it refers to the pitcher. You see that? The similar sentence, right? Full and empty with one word change, the whole meaning of the it changes, right? This is what is the power of self-attention. Now, think about it, right? We humans can understand this, but how do you make a machine learn, which was the biggest problem, which transformers solved. Now, these three innovations, to recap, position encoding, attention, and self-attention, these are the three biggest innovations which has really made transformers very popular. And they indeed kind of talked about it a lot, right? And now we are talking about this transformers as the foundational model, and the foundational model here can read any set of English text, images, speech, structured data, unstructured data, and it can solve variety of tasks. Now, all the business people out here relate to your domains, be it question answering to sentiment analysis to image captioning, be it a problem related to complex accounting answering, right, which CAs used to do, are all solved by these transformers, which has become a foundational model, right? So transformers is the foundational model here. So 70% of the papers in the last 2 years are really related to transformers, guys, right? And which is a big difference from what we used to have in those early days, right? So I've also given a link to all those interesting papers, but we're not going to get into this. 5 years in the transformers is there in existence. Whatever new technology comes, it is not able to beat the performance of it, right? So Mahima, if we have any interesting questions, we can take now, or If you think we can continue, I'm more than happy to do both.
Sure, Arun. Just let me give a look. Arun, I think we can go ahead with the
Sure.
presentation itself.
Fantastic, right? Guys, let's really come to the interesting part, right? So I kind of gave you a little history. I told you what is the secret sauce and how we are the so powerful. Who are the rock stars, right? And let's do a quick poll to understand. And I'm really curious to see your answers on this poll. You and ChatGPT. I'll tell you this funny story where my business user comes to me and says, Arun, why don't we copy paste ChatGPT into our domain and make it work with our data? That really gave a spark. And you know what? That one line chat ping, which came from my business friend, really turned out to be a multi-year program now. And this is for real, guys, right? And how that one word happened, it was because of ChatGPT. The business user saw his own daughter using ChatGPT for homeworks, and he was kind of preparing her up for a talk, right, regarding some European history. And he says something which this girl cross verifies and says, Dad, you're wrong. And she tells the real correct answer. Now this guy goes and checks up, and he was so embarrassed to admit that in front of his school going daughter that yeah, they changed the history a bit, right? And that is ChatGPT's power. We all know it. And let me close this poll now. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Very interesting pattern I'm seeing here. There are people who never use this. 7%. Can you tell me the cave under which we were living all this time, guys? This is for, if this is for real, we see also folks, right? Almost 32% of the folks who have explored a bit, 20 to 30, 40 times till now. And there are people who cannot live with it. 15% cannot live with it. I know some of the folks here, right, whom I can relate to. I'm one such person here. And this is really addictive. And at least 100 times I've tried a lot. Okay, so we have people who have really tried, right? So let's talk about ChatGPT for a second and understand some more intricacies, right? So it's really important for us to know the parent company here, which is the OpenAI, right? OpenAI is really popular, and this is a company which was formed in 2015. And you know, the smartest gentleman on planet Earth in the field of AI, like Elon Musk, Ilya, Andrej Karpathy, right? And Sam Altman, Greg Bachman, all these top guys, interesting guys in the field of AI, they come up with this idea of an open research organization for helping humanity in 2015. And they come up with this interesting model in 2018, which is called GPT-1. And that was really interesting. And it solved many problems, which the exterior problems were, it was difficult. Then GPT-2 was immediately released in a year's time, right? Within a year. And that also kind of was there and was not very popular. Only few people in the community knew it. Now, you know what? GPT-3 went beta, and this is, we are talking about generative pre-trained transformers, which are nothing but these models which this organization OpenAI has built with huge corpus of internet data, right? And in 2020, when the world was entirely busy with something called Corona, right? GPT-3 was released, right? And nobody gave a damn. But Microsoft did, right? And you know what? Microsoft invested $1 billion in making this particular GPT-3. And guys, believe it or not, GPT-3 till now is one of the darlings in the world of generative AI. And GPT-3 is that one model which clearly showed big difference in the whole world of generative AI in solving variety of tasks. It could code, it could translate, it could write poetry, it could do anything, sentiment analysis, named entity recognition, you name it, you get it on language side, right? That was GPT-3. And it was a beast, 175 billion parameters. Now, when I say it's a 175 billion parameters, the input parameters, right, to construct that big model, right? If you think of this as a huge mathematical equation, like y is equal to mx plus c is a small equation. If you think of this as a huge mathematical equation, a statistical model that can predict the next best word, that can really fill in the blanks, that can really identify a product name in a given text, that was GPT-3, right? And now a tuned version of GPT-3 is nothing but the one which we all know, that is ChatGPT. And this was the day, right, where AI had to come and introduce itself to the world on 30th of November, where a fine-tuned version of GPT-3 by the name 3.5, which is nothing but ChatGPT, was released to the world. And $10 billion was invested by Microsoft in OpenAI again. And you look at these phases. Now, fast forward, March, GPT-4 was released, and people were not even ready for ChatGPT. And some people did not even use ChatGPT. But the world was surprised with GPT-4, and there is a little reason behind this, which I will cover towards the last slide, right? Mark this date, 14th of March, 2023, right? And to put this into perspective, if you are talking about GPT-3, which is a dot, we are talking about GPT-4, which is the big ball like this, right? 175 billion parameters to 100 trillion, and this 100 trillion is also just an estimate. Nobody really knows the size of this beast, right? Which can take a scribbled image of a website, you feed into the model, it can read the scribbled image, handwritten image, it can create a full-fledged website for you, image to reasoning to a real code to an output. That is GPT-4, right? That was the demo we all saw. And it's a very interesting criticism that OpenAI is receiving, where OpenAI is not OpenAI anymore, it is closed AI, because with Microsoft's investment of $11 billion, Microsoft is clearly having an edge factor in taking over Google, and the models are not available for we public to download. We can use it, we can pay and use, right? But we can't really download. ChatGPT can't even be fine-tuned if you for your specific organizational data. But there are tricks to do that, which I'll cover in the upcoming webinars. I don't need to introduce ChatGPT to you guys, right? You know this interface and the nice capabilities of this, right? It can explain concepts to a kid, it can brainstorm ideas, and I do this a lot, right? I ask ChatGPT to play the role of my opponent, and I take one side and I say, this is my opinion on this topic, what do you think, right? Give me 5 pros and cons of what I say, right? I do this kind of brainstorming with it, which is pretty cool, and it has helped me a lot, right, in the last 6 to 8 months. And if you look at this limitations, of course, there are many, but the capabilities are umpteen, right? It can talk like a human. But wait, how many of us, right, really know that this is really a world record, right? In 1 million day, 1 million, in 5 days, right, it was able to get 1 million users, which Spotify took 150 days and Insta took 75 days, right? And this is a real record, right? In 5 days, it really took the world by storm. And I don't need to exaggerate by saying in just 2 months, it reached 100 million users. And this is a record again in the history of mankind, right? Where a technology, an AI technology, reaching 100 million people in 2 months, right? And look at Uber, which took 70 months, right? And now we are talking about Feb, right? Where in just 3 months, right? December to Jan to Feb, in 3 months, it reaches 1 billion users, footfalls, right, on the website. And interestingly, it is 65% men and 35% women. It's in that, very interestingly, only 63% of the users age between 18 and 34, right? We are talking about this group of people who are curious, right? But I even heard from my business user that his mom, who is 75 and 80, is almost using ChatGPT to ask him questions, right? So this is again unbelievable. But let's take a second. We are enjoying all this technology. Do we really know what it takes to build one like this? Do you know how much does it cost? It costs a whopping $700,000 a day to run on the Microsoft Azure cloud. And do you understand why OpenAI allowed Microsoft to invest $11 billion to hold almost 50%, 50% of the stake of OpenAI? This is because these models that we are talking about, right, are power hungry. Sometimes it is the power that is required to run an average American or an Indian home for 50 years, it what takes to build one single model, to train a model like ChatGPT. It demands lots of compute power, and it runs on this NVIDIA graphical processing units, which is nothing but, if you imagine the computer which has to process a lot of instructions, GPUs are nothing but those computers on steroids where it can do a lot of these computations on a grid, and it can parallelize and achieve a lot. NVIDIA became so popular, and they really gave chips for Microsoft to build ChatGPT, right, with OpenAI. And this big collaboration between NVIDIA and Microsoft really accelerated the whole pace. And that's why Microsoft is now pushing generative AI so much, right? And trust me when I say this, in next 6 months, you will have this Windows 11, which will be powered with AI in every single pixel. You can talk to your Word, you can talk to your PowerPoint, you can talk to your, prepare me for this meeting, and it's going to pull up all the content from the Teams to OneDrive to your Outlook, and it is going to come up with a deck which summarizes for 5 points to go for this meeting, right? This is for real, and that's why this is a must-have skill, right? And now, do you know this moment where NVIDIA really took the limelight in becoming a trillion-dollar company? And I'm going to share my article, which I wrote on this in the last month, right? Where it bumped up by $200 billion in a single day. How on the world could NVIDIA do this? It's not a small company. They were existing all this time. It took 88% dominance in the GPU world by ChatGPT, and also the dominance they have in the generative AI space. They are creating custom chips. And a fun fact, ChatGPT takes $100 million just on NVIDIA chips, right? And you can, if you imagine, there are 10,000 chips which are used to build ChatGPT. Each chip costs $10,000. It costs $100 million on papers to just train a ChatGPT, right? On NVIDIA, just on NVIDIA. And needless to say, last 6 months, NVIDIA has really climbed to the top of the ladder in the stock market, right? S&P 500 world, first half, these are the top words. And look at the jump it has had from this April. We are talking not too far history, right? We're talking about a couple of months. And look at the players 6 and 7. They are again chip companies. The world needs these chip guys. The world needs these processing units. And to build more generative AI models, you need these processing units. And that's why you see these chip companies, right? Like Palo and Norwegian Cruise Line in the top ladder. Now, Microsoft is also building their own chip, because you see the cost, $100 million to train a ChatGPT, and that is the money only on NVIDIA. How about building our own chip is what Microsoft thought, and they come up with this chip called Athena, right? And that is in the making. Now it's time for us to really think, are we using ChatGPT the right way? Have you ever used a playground? Have we ever used a playground, right? We are almost there. Let's just understand this bit, and let's answer this one last poll. And have you used OpenAI playground? Do you even know what is an OpenAI playground? I don't mean the playground, which we all know, but I mean the OpenAI playground. 5, 4, 3, 2, and boom. Very nice. I'm glad to know that 81% of you guys are going to have a big takeaway today. You were using ChatGPT not the best way all this time, right? And I'm going to show you how, right? 80% of the class doesn't know what is an OpenAI playground. Guys, get introduced. ChatGPT can be used in many ways. Now we also have GPT-4, right, which is the super brother of ChatGPT, which is a beast, right? Now ChatGPT is something which can be accessed with chat.openai.com. I don't need to explain this popular way. If you go to this particular website, playground.openai.com, right? And if you just try to go to this particular interface called Playground, here it is a nice interactive interface which is always available, unlike ChatGPT, which used to say that a lot of people are using it, right? And this is an interface where we can even control the parameters of this model. And you can interestingly interact with this model by tweaking the parameters. I'm not going to take much time. I leave it to your exploration, but go to that website, playground.openai.com, and you can create your own examples, right? You can create your own examples, and you can kind of play with this model, right? By using this playground, you can access chats to completions to variety of tasks. And you need not just use ChatGPT. If you want to use an older model like a GPT-3 or a previous model, right, you can still do this. And if you want the chat interface, you can go to this chat mode, and you can clearly see there are variety of models, right? And we normal humans don't get exposed to all these models in the ChatGPT mode, right? ChatGPT has this limited restriction. It gives you only a few words. You need to press continue again, right? And we have these models which can even chuck out 16K of context, right? And we have this GPT-4. I think for this, all you need is you need an account with OpenAI, right? Which is for free. And you can just go here and enroll, put your mobile number. You get a $5 credit. If you want a serious, if you're a serious user, punch in your credit card and go to the pricing page to understand how much do they charge for every single word, right? And this is nothing but a chat GPT for you, but on a playground mode, right? And you can even control something called a temperature. And do you guys know this is the parameter which really kindles the creativity in chat GPT? And this temperature parameter, when it is set to 0, it gives deterministic answer every single time, right? But when it is set all the way to 1 or 2, right? And this is the one which allows it to get creative. And let me give you one single idea about how ChatGPT works. You know what it is doing? If I ask ChatGPT to write a poem, right? Poem on Elon Musk, right? And it creates a poem. And you know what it does? It actually tries to predict the next best word. That's all it is doing. It starts somewhere and it has seen lots of poetry and it understands what should be the next best word. And if you set this to 0, every single time you ask the same question, right, it is going to really be deterministic. It is going to repeat the same most probably occurring word after Tesla Motors, right? After Tesla Motors. But if you increase this all the way to 2, it kind of gets very creative, right? See, it goes crazy. It can even do something like this, right? It gets very, very creative, and it can um, tell words which it has never said, right? Poem on Elon Musk. Let's now do the same, but this time, you see, there would be a complete difference in the way the above text and the below text looks like, right? And you guys can nicely tweak these parameters. You can increase the length to anything, and you don't need to really worry going with the limitation error in chat gpt in the traditional way, right? So this is playground, and I really strongly encourage you guys to use all the options and play with it. It's a very well made document, and in the interest of time, I need to quickly go to the third idea, which is the Bing chat. Go to bing.new, and Bing, which is the Microsoft's search engine. And you know what, a fun fact, Google is the word which is searched the most on Bing. That is because Bing comes as the default search engine in our Microsoft Edge browsers in our corporate accounts, and people use the word Google to go to the Google website, right, on Bing. And Microsoft really had everything to gain in this partnership with OpenAI by integrating GPT-4 with this chat. And that's what they claim, right? GPT-4 can access the internet, and you can chat like a human with internet access, which chat GPT cannot, right? This is the third way, absolutely free way. Try it, right? And these are the three big ways in which you can use it. And this is the way you can open an account, and I'm going to, we are going to share these links with you for you to try out. And what is important is when you go to the playground, you get more creative. You can understand the examples, the question answers and examples that are out there. And there are some toy examples which will really inspire new ideas, right? And you can play with temperature setting to model choices to the length, and you can even save what inputs you give to the model as reusable prompts later. And I'm going to do a prompt engineering in the next class in detail, right? Let's close this by talking about some challenges. And this is a real picture. And this is a picture from my professor at Indian School of Business, right, who taught me digital marketing a decade ago, right, in AI specialization. And I asked him the publications from my professor Anindya Ghosh, and it gives me all this 7, right? I sent it to him, and he says, dude, Arun, you know what? None of these are real. All these are fabricated. generative AI can generate content which is factually incorrect, guys. Right? And this is what he tweets, right? And these are all great new ideas, but none of these papers or books were written by him. He's a person who writes a lot in the space of marketing, mobile, and all this, but these are not true. And until he told me that these are all fabricated, I always believed that he wrote something in 2018, 2015, and all this, right? This is the problem. You can't understand the sources. The credibility is a big challenge. So use it with caution. Do not just blindly use the data, do a fact check. Now, next biggest problem. AI is cool in generating images, but there is this biggest problem of deep fakes. And this is an idea where we are creating images which are so realistic, and this AI models are capable of doing it. And some guy did this thing right last month, where he kind of prompted this model DALI and Midjourney to create images that as if Trump is arrested. And some lady had tweeted this, and it went big time, right? 15 million in few seconds, right, of retweeting and all that. And this is courtesy deepfakes, and it was occupying all the media for 2 days. And people had to even clarify it, and it looked as if some pictures were so realistic, right? And a shocking fact, deepfakes is really even intervening politics, and there are political games which parties are also playing, right? By creating fake audio, fake video of people saying things which they never said, right? And influence people. And you know what? China, there is a company which is even offering deepfakes as a service. And this is considered a problem. And these guys look at this as an opportunity, where you give a 3-minute video and you just give a whole bunch of 100 sentences, wait for 24 hours, and there on your account you have this completely fake video which is created with your own voice, with your own style. And that is deepfakes as a service by a Chinese company. I was shocked when I saw this the first time, right? Just for $145, if you're able to get a deepfake for 3 minutes, it's a torture, right? It's which these guys are facing. Now artists are facing this, guys. Artists are not happy. Digital artists are really pushing back against AI, right? And AI learns the pictures drawn by these amazing modern arts by artists, and it creates better images than these guys. And it is almost stealing the identity, right? And the biggest problem is who's owning this content. Who owns the content generated by ChatGPT, Midjourney, DALI, these models, right? And this is an image which is created by a smart guy. He goes to this artist arena, and he wins the first prize, right? He won this with this image, and later he reveals the world that it was a generative AI based image, right? And this artists were really going crazy, right? And this is a problem, guys, right? And let's end the day by really talking about the real AI war that is happening between Google and Microsoft, with Sam Altman behind the screen with OpenAI. Every single move by Microsoft and Google are really taking a close call, and Microsoft is really not wanting to leave the limelight, right? By making a close move with every single thing that Google does. Google had great plans. In fact, Google is the one which introduced Transformers. Google is the one which introduced BERT, the first model in generative AI. And you know what? Now Google is really trying to catch up. And 14th of March, they really want to answer ChatGPT. They really wanted to come up with that Bard AI's goof up they did with that teaser video where they lost 100 billion market cap in a single day with a factually incorrect thing that Bard generated. To catch up for all that, they did this March 14, they introduced this model called Palm API. And you know what? Within couple of hours, OpenAI immediately announces GPT-4, which is the beast, and it can do anything and everything under the sun, right? And world was never prepared for GPT-4. And ChatGPT gets introduced in December, Jan, Feb, and even before we can even understand what it could do, March 14 this comes. And I was there that day. I saw this tweet notification from Sundar. I was reading this blog. Within 1 hour or 2 hours, I see this tweet from OpenAI, and they have this real launch in the next 2 hours in the Pacific time. I sat at 1 in the night and saw this, and it was really amazing, right? And this is what we are talking about, guys. There is a real AI war, and more about this in our upcoming webinars, right? And last message for the day: AI is really great at doing tasks. It can do a task, but it is really terrible at doing whole jobs. And we as professionals, be it senior to super junior, we need to get productive at getting the first best version of our email to business contract to image or even a student's homework with these models, and then apply our human acumen on top of it. And that is where we get the best version. And this is what differentiates an A grader versus an honest C grader, right? Who doesn't use generative AI in the future. So this is for real. AI is really great. And I would like to leave you with this high note that we still are there to leverage AI and not really think the other way, right? So that calls for the first webinar, and webinar 2 and 3 are going to be a little intense, right? We are going to really see generative AI in action. I'm going to put you through the prompt engineering, and you're going to see me do things. I will share you handbooks. I will share links, which you can do along with me 1 week from now on 13th July, where you can understand how to write best prompts, and you will learn some of the latest and greatest techniques. And webinar 3 is going to be an open freestyle in we trying all sorts of models and generating stuff and practical use cases. I hope that was helpful. AI is not going to replace us because it's not great at doing jobs. It can do tasks. A person who is using AI to get his tasks done will indeed replace us, guys. Let's use AI ethically. And thank you so much for being patient with this extra little stretch. And I'm happy to take questions if you have any. And these are I also write a lot on tech and statistics and AI. Follow my Medium and LinkedIn for more. Let's now open the floor for questions, Mahima.
Sure. So Arun, if you could see the Q&A section, we have a lot of questions in there, and we can start taking questions one by one.
Okay, sure. I see the first question. Do tell us about ChatGPT and its use for students. Yeah, students, you know what? This is the best era to get educated. You know, Khan Academy, you know, all those veterans or legends in the field of education, the edtechs, right? HeroWire included. Everybody is really trying to leverage generative AI to make education easy and simple and available, right? And ChatGPT can really help you to understand concepts which were not taught the best way. And you know what? I've been teaching all this for the last decade. Teaching is my hobby, and gone are those days where I used to read those books, right, on regression to all those tough concepts. Now you can get ChatGPT explain you concepts to a 5-year-old, and you can really understand the best way, get the intuition, and really use this in multiple ways, right? Learn new concepts. Prepare for a test. Ask ChatGPT to prepare yourself for a test by asking questions. You can do all sorts of games with ChatGPT as well, right? So I think students can really get educated the best way with this. Next one, webinar is going to be interesting. Okay, thank you. That was a comment, and I'm a student, sir. Thanks for attending, doing BCom. Good. I hope that that was helpful. Chitty comes into, yeah, in which AI? Chitty, you know what? Chitty is the spark of artificial superintelligence, right? And look at that climax scene, right, where Chitty says, we make ourselves, right? And Chitty 2.0 and even 3.0, right? If you can relate to, we are talking about superintelligence, right? So it could do things beyond. And this is really coming from the visionary director, but this is for real. Yeah, so that comes under ASI, guys. How long? Okay, great. Anonymous attendee asks, thoughts about AI being good or bad in the long term. I think I kind of answered this, Mr. Anonymous, where I said AI is here to help us as long as we upskill to the needs of the hour, and we don't just stay under the cave by saying that AI is not my cup of tea, and if you stay away, it is really dominating, guys. Trust me when I say this. In 6 months, everybody is like really sensitized, like those moms who start carrying babies, right, who are really sensitized by the immune system. This is for real, right? Business users wants to grab the opportunity. Data scientists are going crazy. The models which they built for 6 months are now, you don't even need to build a model. You just need to talk to the model, right, within English. So it's going to be good. Regulations will help in controlling that it doesn't become too bad, right? And how is new content generated? I think it was asked at 7:30. Parak, I hope you got your answer, right? These are large language models which have seen terabytes of internet data. And if you say, I love dogs, I love dash. It predicts the next best word. It predicts the probability of that word being dog, the probability of the word being food, the probability of the word being, let's say, water or fish, anything, right? Now, it tries to pick the next best word, and having uttered 3 words, it tries to predict what is the 4th best word. You know what? It's conditional probability in simple terms, right? If you guys love probability, then it is conditional probability. If you don't like it, just forget this. It predicts the next best word. And again, when you top it up with write 100 words about it, give me a poetry, write it in Shakespeare style, create an image in the low dim light, all these acts as inputs to the model, which are conditions which make it very creative. That's how it creates. And transformer is the secret sauce. I hope you got it right. And a lot of people have talked about Python, Mojo, all this. It's transformers, the specific arrangement of neurons.ai. Transformers is the backbone of any AI program that is running around the world today, right? Sri Krishna. This is the secret sauce. And if you guys are really interested, there are beautiful videos on transformers. If you learn how this transformer works, if you want to work on a stable diffusion model or an image model, tomorrow you might even get specialists, right? You can easily become one. You need to understand, learn the latest technologies for you to not wait and learn the traditional technologies. Learn transformers and learn the more recent use cases, and I think it's going to fall in place, right? And how are you? I'm great, thank you. Can you please explain the relevance of AI for marketing? Come on. I should ask. Marketing is this one world, right? And you know what? I saw this ad yesterday where a company tells that we charge you 1/10 of the same price which we used to charge you in the previous year to their existing clients, and they write it to all their prospects. If it costs $10,000, it is 1/10 of it, right? You know how are they able to do this claim? Generative AI. Creative content, marketing creatives, writing those slogans, be it market research, be it doing an A/B testing or an analysis, right? Or trying to strategize, think of products. For all of these things, right? You can give the scenario and explain and make these generative AI models give these best drafts for you, and you can again fine tune by giving additional prompts. So Ayushi, next webinar is going to help you in knowing more about how you can apply it in your world, right? With prompts. Technology stack begin. Technology stack, I think again, this is a question which was asked earlier. I kind of touched upon it. It is all neural networks. Neural network is a machine learning algorithm. Machine learning is nothing but a small subset of AI, right? And now it's funny to say AI is so big. Large language model is a dot, but this large language model looks as if this is entirety of AI, right? So the tech stack is very promising with transformers powered, and you can imagine all these startup companies taking their proprietary data in finance to insurance, right? And trying to fine tune these models by giving the domain data. And the technology stack should be more around building these neural network algorithms, fine tuning it with some GPUs and chips, which they have, and writing these algorithms like quantization techniques to do it faster. I'm not getting too technical here, but it's the crux of it is already kind of touched, Mallikarjuna, right? How to detect font type from images? Can you explain how to detect font type? Font type from images is more of a vision problem, right? You can understand it should be an image. The image has to be closely matched with the past fonts, but I don't think these large language models take fonts and all this into account. And perhaps an image model would do, Priyankshi, right? But not a large language model. Can you better understand the foundation model? Yes. Ashish asks, what is a foundation model? Foundation model is nothing but, as the term suggests, it is so foundational in nature that it can kind of do any task, right? And that's the one of those earlier slides, right, where we talked about these transformers being the foundational model of all, right? And that is this slide, right, where you give variety of data, and this transformers is nothing but this neural network architecture, which is the foundation model. And that the term has come now, and this is coined by NVIDIA and a few others, right, in the field. It's very interesting, where you can approximate and get any task done by fine-tuning a transformer, and it can understand the patterns. It can know the context with these 3 big innovations we saw on the previous slide, right? And it can do things in any specific spectrum to image to audio to video, right? That is the idea of foundational models. And you are already using a foundational model when you use ChatGPT, Ashish. Great. Now, Arjit asks, if the genesis of Transformer or ChatGPT was 2017, what is the next big disruptive innovation we are expecting coming soon, right? And this was answered, Arjit, right? If you see this, 5 years of enormous research. It's like the same girl with makeup, without makeup, with super makeup, and all of these variants of Transformer, right? And literally, nothing is beating the essence of having this Transformer architecture, right? And when I say Transformer architecture, I mean this encoder decoder model, which I've kind of put here with the 3 big innovations, right? How it learns the context. Even in images, it can understand the background. Take an example of a husky dog, right? And a wolf. These two really look the same, right? You know what? If the background is a snow, the earlier models, right, used to understand the background. And if the background is a snow, it is potentially a wolf. But a husky, which is sitting in a garden and a clicked, right, it kind of learned these unnecessary things around, right, and was doing a prediction, which is a dangerous thing. Tomorrow, when you really put a wolf in your garden and click a pic, nobody is going to really be surprised if it says it is a husky. But these models, transformer-based models, can understand the context, right? The eye to the minute detailing, and it can understand even an image, right? So transformers is there to stay. You will see variants of transformers which are really solving the problem, right? But this is an active area of research, Ajit, and we are talking about models which are heavily using transformers. It's still in the research mode. Perhaps we can build one, Ajit, if you're ready. Tell us the trick to use, sir. Anonymous attendee, we will talk about the tricks, right, in the webinar 2 and webinar 3, right? And I'm going to show you. It's going to be a live session, a hack session, which we'll do. And technological difference between GPT and Bard. Awesome. GPT is generative pre-trained transformers, Ashish, right? And this Bard, which is again coming from OpenAI. GPT-3, ChatGPT, GPT-4, these are the superstars on OpenAI, right? And GPT-4 is a beast, right? It is like, it costs so much to use. GPT 3.5 is the ChatGPT, which we all know. Now, Bard is coming from Google. Now, Bard is the answer which Google had to ChatGPT, right? And that's where they were actually pressurized, and they had to really push themselves to release Bard without much preparation, because December, Jan, world is really using ChatGPT, and people were even making up things like Google is dead, people are going to move to ChatGPT altogether. The difference is Google is a search engine. ChatGPT is, after all, a system which is trained with this transformer till 2021 data. It can't really search real today's data, right? But you know what? Bard thought they come up with this answer. They have their technology of generative models, which is PaLM. PaLM, Lambda was, these are the language models which they were working on. I still remember the day 5 years ago where Lambda model was announced by Google. They announced a lot, but they were really delaying a delivery. So what happened was ChatGPT was a shock, and they released Bard in no time. There is a teaser video they make. They say, explain James Webb Telescope to the 5-year-old. That model writes 3 statements, of which one is factually incorrect. Nobody knew the correctness of it because it is trained on an incorrect data which was there on the internet, right? And you know what happened? It was put up on the Twitter page. There comes this NASA scientist who knows everything about James Webb Telescope, makes this little tweet that, you know what, this fact is incorrect. And the James Webb Telescope was not the first one to click the exoplanet, and it is something else, right? He makes this single factual incorrect statement from the teaser video of Bard that really creates the viral message, right? That Google can't get this wrong. You know what? Ask the same question to ChatGPT, it would still give you the wrong answer, but nobody is going to complain, right? So Google had everything to lose, and ChatGPT or Microsoft or OpenAI had everything to gain, right? That was the real game, right? In Feb days, I'm talking about the Feb days. That's where Google again pushed themselves. They introduced PaLM API. They set up this meeting to demo it in a phone. They forget the phone. And this was a very embarrassing moment, right? And that these two events back to back led to 100 billion market cap loss. Go and check Google stock price in the first half of the year. You would understand what I mean, right? So Bard is this technology from Google, powered by their Palm models. GPT is a technology from OpenAI, and they really don't compare with each other. You can try bard.ai.com, google.ai. It is for free. And tell me, I don't like it. Tell me if you like it. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I think we are kind of done. Sir, actually, in AI Playground, it shows you reached your usage limit.
Sorry to interrupt, Arun, but as much as I want this session to go on, we are running out of time.
Cool.
So if you would quickly like to take one last question.
Yes, I think this is the last question. Anonymous attendee is asking repeatedly. Can you please explain the meaning of the line said by Altman CEO? Okay, let this be the last question, right? The messages, guys, which is the message, which is important message to take away. AI is really good at doing tasks. Ask it to write a poetry, ask it to write an article, ask it to write a quick cookbook or a playbook, right? Or write an article to saw or a code. It can really do a great job at it, right? It can do a great task at getting it done, sometimes very accurately, better than a human. But if you ask a whole job that you do today, right, to be done by this ChatGPT or any generative AI system today, it is not that good for now. For now is the keyword, right, to take away. So what is that we need to do? We need to make use of these technologies to get more productive on the job or solve problems the better way, and not really get worried of, will it take away my job? Will it take away humanity and all that, right? That's the message that Sam Altman had to say. And that's the message that I also would like to leave you guys with.